Good evening, everyone. I welcome you all for today's webinar on NSDL Demat Gateway in association with NSE and NSDL. Today we have with us guest speakers from NSDL, Mr. Vishal Gupta, Senior Vice President, Deputy CTO, Mr. Parag Joshi, Vice President, and Mr. Parthiv Dave, Associate Vice President. Now I request our chairman, Sir Mr. Arjun Shah, to deliver welcome speech.
Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to our webinar on NSDL Demat Gateway. NSDL is recently, as everyone's aware, NSDL has recently had their IPO. It's doing well. And so we thought of approaching them and asking them what new offerings and API-based features do they have. So Vishal and the team has been very kind enough to give us this slot. So we are basically going to be talking about the API offerings that NSDL has, and the new evolving trends of the capital market and where NSDL is making what's the roadmap ahead for the API that NSDL gives. So over to you, Vishal.
Sure. Thank you so much, Arjun ji. And first of all, I would like to welcome the entire Indian capital market community who have joined us here today. Myself, Vishal, along with my colleagues Parag and Parthiv, we will, so in this agenda here today, we will basically be talking about NSDL's Demat Gateway, which is essentially a term that we coined with respect to all API-based services that we offer specifically for the Demat domain. And Demat, as you would all realize, is a term that was coined by NSDL back in 1996 when this whole concept of Demat was introduced for the Indian markets. So as part of the session today, what we want to do is first we want to start off in the section 1 with the NSDL lens. And herein we want to highlight as to what we think the way the Indian capital markets have dynamically evolved and what does it basically imply in terms of process and system changes for the MIIs, essentially the market infrastructure institutions like ourselves, CDSL and so on. Second, in the section 2, we would showcase to you the existing NSDL API portfolio and how we have had a constant focus on innovation in terms of identifying what are those processes or the operational processes which could be, at the helm of either the broker or it could be with respect to the DP, wherein there are some operational nuances which essentially require a transition from the way the brokers and the DPs interface with the MIS today to a more of an API-based approach. So we have been on the constant identification of such processes and taking that opportunity, we have been converting them into more of real-time API-based interfaces, with NSDL. In section 3, we would focus on the SEBI lens, wherein we will bring to your focus on the UDIF standards. Now, this is again a term which is not new for most of you. You know that over the last 1 year, there has been a phenomenal effort done by the entire market as well as the two depositories, NSDL and CDSL, in terms of implementing these harmonized standards. And now SEBI would like to take this to the next level, wherein when we implemented UDIF standards, we were talking about a file-based interface, specifically with the MIIs. Now since we have been talking about the APIs as a preferred means of integration, so there is a need to look at a standardization in this space as well. And this is where SEBI has been very instrumental in having a discussion with both NSDL and CDSL to establish that common framework. So this is also something that we will touch upon in the session today. And lastly, we would also share with you highlights of what we have been planning in terms of NSDL's API roadmap, right? And what would it mean in terms of the opportunities for system integration for the entire market. Right? Moving on to the first aspect on the NSDL lens. So here, if you look at the left-hand side, in terms of the market dynamics, the way things have been, influencing the post-trade MIS space, the first point, as you would all see, is around the shrinking of the settlement period. Almost 2 decades back, while we were in the T+3, T+2 regime, it almost took us, 2 decades to move into the T+1 regime. And now we, even though it's only a partial set of securities, but now we are talking about a T+0 regime. Now, what it basically means is that as a result of this, there are changes which have to be accommodated by each and every player, including the MIIs, as far as the overall life cycle of a transaction is concerned. Similarly, with respect to the kind of transaction volumes that we have witnessed, there has been a manifold time increase in the settlement transaction volumes from what we saw 5 years or 10 years back. Similarly, in terms of the demand for new products and services, this is again somewhere that market has been expecting these products and services to be launched at a faster pace compared to the pace at which you see the products being rolled out. Similarly, in terms of the reporting needs, right? Here again, there is an increased need, considering that the settlement cycles are going to shrink. There is an increased need to have more of a real-time reporting via the digital interfaces that we offer to the market today. And similarly, around the standards harmonization, this is where we spoke about the fact that in the last 2 to 3 years, this has picked a lot, right from the days when we were kind of pseudo ISO to now moving into a specific standardization format for the Indian capital markets with the UDEF. And last but not the least is the point around the low latency, resiliency, and secure systems. So if you actually look at it, typically the depository was considered as a post-trade settlement domain, which fundamentally it is, but there are certain transactions which actually require a low latency platform to be catered by the depositories as well. Now, these are scenarios wherein whenever you see a EDS transaction, right, a EDS mandate, the mandate needs to be done in a very shorter time frame and responded to the broker, so that eventually the order can be placed into the market. And simultaneously, when the trades get executed on the market, there is a need to execute the EPI API in milliseconds. And subsequently, once the EPI API gets executed, the reporting of this EPI export needs to be done to the CC in real time, right? So that's the kind of platforms that we are talking about. So having said that, what have we been doing? So on a constant basis, based on the kind of the way the market has evolved, NSDL has also been embarking upon various process and technology transformation programs to keep up with these growing demands. And considering this, there are a lot of innovative products and services, as well as the fact that we are focusing on offering a secure, real-time, interoperable integration channel with the primary objective that we offer an ease of doing business to our market participants, as well as enhance the overall customer experience. And when I talk about customer experience, I'm not just talking about a user interface like a web portal. I'm talking about the overall experience with the 3 objectives that we are looking at: streamlined operations, we are looking at products which have a faster time to market, and at the end, towards the end, accomplishing an overall process efficiency, which is by and large something that market is looking for. Now, before I delve into the aspect of what we are doing or how do we actually look at in terms of innovating actually. So for us, fundamentally, when we look at the day in the life of business operations, you segregate the entire day into beginning of day activities, the business day operations, and the end of day activities. For us, we tend to look at these processes in a very close manner, and we tend to identify those areas where there is an opportunity as well as there is a need for having a real-time interface, right? Now, there are some processes out there today in the market wherein the market participants would tend to bucket the instructions, and then there are predefined intervals in which the transactions need to get executed. you can probably take an example, for example, with respect to any, account management activities that need to be done, right? Similarly, there are other processes which are more real time, which do not require the batching or which would require more of a real time integration with the MIIs, right? So when you look at the business day operations, there are aspects related to monitoring of pending paying obligation. There are aspects with respect to the monitoring of CM obligation overdues. There are aspects related to the submission of orders and EDS mandates. How do you download the margin pledge confirmation of client trades, right? Now, we tend to look at these processes closely, and based on which we have developed till now certain set of APIs, and we kind of bucket them into two broad areas. The first are more of the operational enablers, and this is where we talk about early paying API, we talk about a margin pledge API, EDS mandate API, account opening APIs, account modification APIs, account UCC validation API. So essentially, these APIs cover the critical set of functions that we have out there today with respect to account management and transaction management. And then there are certain business value added also, which we have developed over a period of time with respect to, again, with respect to, enabling the market participants such as banks, NBFCs and all to launch more of very niche products out there. For example, loan against securities or a mutual fund redemption API or a API which is ideas redirection API, wherein the DPs would want to build more of a seamless integration and have a unified customer journey, starting from the DP portal onto the NSDL's ideas portals. Then we have the EDAC facility, the account aggregator API, which is right now a big success in terms of NSDL integrating with almost 13 account aggregators actually out there today, whereby NSDL being a FIP, that is a financial information provider, we furnish information related to the statement of holdings and statement of account via this consent-based infrastructure out to the FIUs, that is the financial information users, like the investment managers, who have been entrusted by their clients to look at their holdings and provide recommendations. And lastly, the NDML KRA services, which are again primarily to do with the process of the PAN validation during an account opening process, as well as at the time of freeze unfreeze, if any event takes place in the respective KRA.
Well,
Yeah.
one of the important factors, again, which we feel like covering here is the direct payout. So, from the past 6 months or maybe more, since when the direct payout has been operational, it has been a huge success. And in the credit of securities has been now is being now passed directly to the client's accounts and is being created in a much faster way. So you might now be observing that the brokers who were earlier required to provide the payout themselves to create the payout files to upload it through one of the NSDL platforms, maybe EDPM or SPD or Spice. Now that need has completely done away with, and now whenever the CC uploads the direct payout, say during the time of 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., within half an hour the credit is, or maybe even lesser time, the credit is being given into the respective demat account. So that has actually reduced the TAT or the cycle of direct payout massively, giving much more time to the brokers to deal with the other types of transactions or other business activities. Yes, Vishal.
Yeah. So this is a more of an infographic about the NSDL's API offerings portfolio, wherein if you look at the various entities that we are talking about brokers, we are talking about on the top left hand side, then we are talking about the depository participants on the bottom left hand side, then we have other set of players out there in the capital markets ecosystem, right from the clearing corporations to the RTA. MS Central is a new, centralized platform that has been developed primarily from a mutual fund business perspective. The KRA, NDML, the account aggregators, and the bank NBFCs. Now, when you look at the brokers, right, the way the brokers platforms have evolved, right, while you have a front office, middle office, and back office, from a brokerage perspective, there is an NSDL API interface which essentially handles APIs such as EDS mandates API, margin pledge API, the DAN, which is the Demat account validation API, early paying API, and the Insta Demat account opening API primarily for the broker DPs. As far as the access of other transactions is concerned, that currently takes place through the web channel today, as of now, wherein you see the access to NSDL portal, wherein there are instructions such as pay-in, payout instructions, the CM pool to pool, inter-settlement, and so on, as well as any reports and extracts that are currently taken. They are all taken through the portal currently. Similarly, when you come to the depository participant side, right? So there we are talking specifically about the account opening process, wherein you have the Insta Demat account opening API, as well as the fact that you also have the file-based, model wherein the complete file that you typically would upload either on a portal, that is the cloud DPM, you could even push that file for account opening as well as the entire account maintenance through an API. So all the pieces that you see highlighted in blue are the ones which are primarily an API-based interface. Along with the fact that as a fallback mechanism, we also have the file-based, on the portal-based, models in place. Then with respect to the clearing corporation, we spoke about the EPI export API, right? So as soon as the EPI transaction gets recorded in the depository, there is an instantaneous real-time feed which goes out to the clearing corporations. Then in terms of the margin pledge exports also, so any level 3 pledges that get pledged from the clearing member to the clearing corporation, so that also is fed to the clearing corporations on a real-time basis. Then with respect to the margin repledge closures, right? So this is again an API which has been developed, and currently, as we speak, some of the clearing corporations are in the process of integrating this API in the production system. Then with respect to RTS, this is and the MF Central. So this is where we have the mutual fund Demat Holdings API, which basically feeds the mutual fund Demat Holdings to the MF Central platform, as well as the fact that we had certain APIs built for the RTAs, wherein the RTAs could solicit the conversion requests as well as the client signatures via API. This is over and above the current model that they have today, wherein these files are transported to them via the SFTP channel. So again, depending on the innovation growth of the innovation focus of the respective institution, we have been trying to have a mix of both the approaches in terms of building the API portfolio suite of NSDL, as well as the fact of maintaining the existing integration channels so as to ensure that the business as usual continues. Similarly, with respect to the KRA, that is NDML, we spoke about the PAN status validation API, which is used at the time of account opening, right, to validate the PAN status. Similarly, there is a new API which has been implemented, which is any event that gets recorded in the NDML or any of the KRAs with respect to a change in the PAN activation status. So that basically feeds via the freeze and unfreeze API onto NSDL, and so that accordingly the event gets triggered. Then with respect to the account aggregator, we spoke about the statement of holdings and statement of transactions. And lastly, we also spoke about the bank and the NBFCs, which basically use the digital LAS or the third-party LAS, which has been out there over the last 6 to 7 years in the market. So this is overall the landscape. And what we also have tried to summarize is the different API offering portfolio that we have, right? So right from account management, wherein you see the Demat account validation API. Yeah, this one. Yeah. So the Demat account validation API, which was created primarily for consumption for the exchanges, which do it at the time of IPOs, as well as the depository participants in AMCs. This essentially helps them to identify a Demat account status actually. The Demat account creation, this is an API which we also have branded as Insta Demat account opening API. So this is extensively used by over, I think around more than 95 plus brokers and bank DPs, which facilitates online instant account creation. Then we have the so in addition to this message-based APIs, we also have the file-based API, wherein if you would want to process your instructions in bulk, so this is where you can use the file-based account opening as well as the account maintenance APIs. Then we have the EDS mandate API, which is essentially we call it as the B2B2C, wherein with respect to B2B, it is the NSDL and the brokers, and then it is also the investors which are part of the process in terms of authenticating and authorizing the transaction on the NSDL portal. Right. This is specifically focusing on the submission of delivery mandates by investors. Then we have the margin pledge API, which is built on the same B2B2C model, which is essentially the real-time submission of margin pledges by investors. The early paying API, which can facilitate the real-time submission of EPI requests in batches of 100, or in fact, the new API that we have released that can consume up to 1,000 instructions in the same batch. So this is again something that we will be, soon sharing with the complete set of participants who are currently using the 100 instructions API. Then we have the early paying export API, which is for the clearing corporation. You want to highlight?
Yeah, so in this API, what happens is basically traditionally uh, it was a file-based mechanism which was used between the CCs and the depositories for sending the API instructions which were issued from the brokers. So there was a certain lag in the file-based mechanism wherein the files were sent to the clearing corporations on at a certain frequency or certain time. So every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes. Then CCs again used to take their own fine time to process these instructions, and the ultimate result was that there was a delay in providing the margin to the actually target clients or target brokers. So what we have done now is basically there is an online API for API export which is in place. So as soon as the depository receives a transaction, which is an API transaction, the moment we receive the transaction, we process it, and an online API request is sent to the respective clearing corporations for the margin benefit. So again, this has reduced the time for the margin benefit processing drastically.
Right. Then we have the margin replace closure API for the clearing corporations.
Again, NSDL Incubator API. So again, we have been working with the RBI for the GSEC transactions which happen between the depositories. So traditionally, this method, currently the GSEC transactions were handled in a manual way, wherein both NSDL and CDSL had to. It was a batch-based mechanism wherein during 4 times a day, there used to be a GSEC settlement between NSDL and CDSL, and then both NSDL and CDSL had to do the respective debits and credits in the eCuber platform manually, thereby again resulting into a delay of GSEC securities within the target client accounts. So again, what from last October, what we have done is we have now there is a three-party API between the depositories and the RBI, which is implemented. So as soon as we get a GSEC transaction, either NSDL or CDSL, we make a online call to RBI eCuber system. There is an online debit credit which happens in the respective CHGL accounts of NSDL and CDSL. And based on the positive confirmation from eCuber platform, the transaction is settled online. So earlier there were 3 or 4 batches. So if a client submitted a request at 9 a.m. in the morning, his request was settled only at 11 a.m. after the first batch processing between NSDL and CDSL. So now that process again has become online. So you will be able to see that slowly we are moving wherein all the transactions we are moving on an online basis where the transactions would be processed online, thereby reducing the overall turnaround time or processing time of these transactions. Next is the KRA PAN validation API. So these are 2 sets of APIs. Basically, there is a set of 2 APIs which we have built. First set is basically whenever account is opened in the depository, there is a call made with the KRA to check the KYC status. Now there is a certain regulation with respect to the KYC status, wherein if the KYC status is not available or is negative within after 5 days of opening the account, the said account is to be frozen. The next API is about the callback. So any PAN which has been sent from the depository to the KRA, if there is a change in the status of any of the PANs, the KRA will the NDML KRA will send us an acknowledgement for that PAN, basis of which again the depository is required to take an action of say freeze or unfreeze or whatever. So again, as we are speaking, traditionally this was handled in a manual way. Now the KRA PAN validation, the API callback for the KRA PAN validation has been implemented. It is currently being run in a parallel run. Very soon it will be implemented live in production, which will again help the brokers and DPs for faster freezing, unfreezing of the accounts.
Right. So going ahead, see the digital loan against securities or the digital LAS API. This is something which was specifically crafted for the banks and NBFCs with the primary objective of them enabling the extension of loan against eligible assets which are held in the demat form to their clients actually, right? So this has been a big hit actually. It's been there since 2018. And of late, we have also launched in the year around 2022 or 2023, we launched the third-party digital as. So in case if it is not the bank DP which is extending the loan, if it is the banks or the NBFCs which do not have a, let's say, a DP license, so even they can go ahead and have their clients, avail this facility with the third party, in this case being the depository participant, where the end investor who is availing the loan actually is holding the demat account. Account aggregator, as we spoke, is again about facilitating the provision of demat holdings and transactions to the FIUs to offer, value-added services to their end clients. This is again the set of most of them are the set of value-added, services. So with respect to the mutual fund domain, we have, APIs which enable the mutual fund conversion from the folio to the demat holdings form, redemptions, which is the redeeming of the dematerialized mutual funds, mutual fund demat holdings, which is again facilitating the entire demat holdings to the RTAs or the mutual fund central, the central utility platform that we spoke about. Then the other APIs, which are specifically the redirection from the DP portal to the IDEAS portal or to the e-voting portal. These or from the IDEAS portal to the e-voting service provider portal. These APIs are essentially to facilitate the DPs in terms of building the end-to-end customer journeys, which are more seamless in terms of integration. So although there is a transition from portals of DPs to the portal of NSDL, but rather than having the user to log in, in terms of putting out the URL and then logging separately, these enable a seamless integration from the DP portal to the IDEAS or the e-voting portal. Then we have certain APIs, which is the PAN demat verification API, which is essentially facilitating the demat account based eKYC at the time of the income tax return filings. And last, the one which is also something which is coming up, which has been very talked about, is the account transfer cum closure API, which essentially is about facilitating the DPs to offer more of a digital online utility for transferring their assets from one depository participant to another depository participant, and at the same time trying to also, if they need to close that account, so the same can be accomplished within this particular API. So so over and all, what we have tried to enumerate here, that NSDL has been progressively working towards identifying the market needs as well as those operational areas of operational efficiency, and exploring where there is a possibility of building a more real-time response model to the market, integration model, wherever the market sees that it is the instant, that the moment the instructions are received from the market, an instant response, instant processing is required to be done rather than a batching, right? Now, with respect to the way we have been developing the API solutions, the key point to note here is that most of these APIs, they are secure. They are based on secure authentication models. whether you talk about APIs or you talk about the portal-based access. The entire firewall system, it is a secure network, right? Which has firewalls as well as the intrusion prevention systems. These are solutions which also encompass the encryption aspect, which is to do with the data in motion, or you talk about the data at rest. These need to be encrypted. And lastly, as part of the overall development process, we do deploy secure coding practices as well as use static code analyzers to ensure that all the vulnerabilities they get identified and addressed at the very inception stage, right? And most importantly, on an ongoing basis, there are certain empaneled vendors who actually validate these APIs on an ongoing basis. So moving to the next slide. Yeah. Parag, you want to detail out here?
Yes. So, as Vishal mentioned, we have been now talking about the standardization. So we started the journey of standardization around 2 or 3 years ago with the DP formats, DP and brokers format. So it was a initiative taken by brokers, which was recommended to SEBI, saying that traditionally where CDSL and NSDL were operating, as well as the exchanges had their own conventional back office formats, and the brokers DPs were required to prepare separate file formats for operating in NSDL, CDSL, or any of the exchanges also. So that is where the process of standardization or the project of standardization was started by SEBI. It was a long project, but it was a good success. So we have worked on that project jointly with the brokers, with all the back office vendors for about a year, and we standardized, harmonized around 2000 fields across 60 or 70 internal formats which are used by both the depositories. This was implemented somewhere in September last year. So the benefit of that was the formats of all the depository transactions now, whether be uploads or downloads, say all the important uploads such as all the settlement uploads, transaction uploads, uh, then margin pledge uploads, all the downloads, important downloads such as the change order of day or the statement of transactions, statement of holdings, client master upload, account opening uploads, downloads. So all of these were standardized, and this in turn actually resulted in lesser development at the back office end. So considering that the formats are same, for both NSDL and CDSL, the development time at the back office end and the testing time at the back office end has reduced drastically. So that is what was brought as a part of standardization of the file formats. Going ahead, we have started the exercise of standardization of the APIs. So as a part of standardization of APIs, what we are doing is basically it will be based on the UD formats only. So when there is a message-based format, the fields as of the UD format will be applicable in the APIs as well. And the other thing what we are doing is we are standardizing the API security framework also. So what I mean by API security framework is basically the way the authentication will take place through an OAuth or a JWT method, the way the encryption will take place. So we are both depositories have agreed to use something which is known as a hybrid encryption for a better security of data. Then there is a certain way which we have agreed to sign or digitally sign the messages and verify the messages. So API security framework will be standardized, and the fields also will be standardized, whether be the file-based APIs or the message-based APIs. So there have been a set of APIs which have been identified by both the depositories and have been conveyed to SEBI, which both the depositories will be going ahead standardizing as a part of the API standardization framework. Going ahead, talking about the future APIs that we are actually building. The first one is the client account creation and maintenance. So this is Vishal already mentioned about the file-based account opening and maintenance API. In addition to the file-based account opening and maintenance, we are also implementing a message-based account opening and maintenance, which can be used as an online, which can be used in an online account opening journey by the brokers, depository participants. The other one is all depository transactions API. That is basically the settlement upload or all the pledge uploads. So all the uploads which are part of the common transaction upload files can be can be uploaded through an API through a single file transaction. The next one is again an important API which we are currently working upon is basically the export APIs. So there are currently around 10 to 15 exports, such as which I talked about, such as the statement of transaction, holding, COD, or the client master export, or the corporate action export. So all these are important exports, or some of the master exports. So all these are exports which are required by the depository participants on a daily basis for updating the back office. So we are in process of implementing or developing an API, a common API for all these exports, which can be directly integrated with the participants' back office, and which will actually provide a request-based API export of the any of the exports which the participant requires or the back office requires. So that is about the future of what we are building upon it. Yeah, Vishal.
So if you in a nutshell, if you see whether you want, so it all depends on how the market participants want to build their own business models and offer the kind of value that they are looking at to the end investor. Whether they are looking at, a batch-based model, in that case, they can explore using, the file-based APIs, wherein the entire file can be, the entire UD format, what was, something that was standardized, the same file format, the same file, it can be encrypted and sent across an API. Or in case if the market, so if you look at the entire UD format, there are essentially 12 to 14 different types of transactions you're talking about. You're talking about account transfer, on-market account transfer, you're talking about off-market account transfer, you are talking about margin pledge, you are talking about margin repledge, you are talking about pledge closures, different type of pledge closures. It could be a unilateral pledge closure for margin pledge, or it could be a unilateral pledge closure for a loan against securities, right? Or it could be a demat, it could be a remat request. So at that time, if the market thinks that you want to build a journey which requires you to meet the end investor needs in terms of having those single transactions being fed into the depository. So that is where SEBI has also been instrumental in highlighting the fact that all the depository transactions also need to be exposed as individual endpoints or the individual APIs, wherein depending on the nature of transaction, you could have a configurable number of transactions fed as part of the same API request. So the model of how the market perceives specifically their own business model, specifically their own operating model, based on the same, NSDL will offer, is building an array of APIs which will address the fundamental operational needs of the market. And as we highlighted earlier, the key point is for us to progressively innovate and deliver value to the market with a focus on building resilient, secure, and performant solutions. And at the end, accomplishing what we want to do is we want to modernize the integration channels for our business partners with the primary objective of facilitating the ease of doing business. So that is in a nutshell what we thought to present to all of you today as part of this focus session. And yeah, so Parag, you want to highlight something else? Yeah. So I think that is what we wanted to share today. Yes, over to you, Arjun ji.
Ajay, Vishal, thank you so much for this presentation. I mean, we ourselves are NSDL DPs, and I got to learn a few new things today myself in terms of API. I think in terms of the brokers and the DPs who taken part in the webinar today, I think in turn your KYC related APIs and in terms of new account creation, your modifications, API related APIs, which is actually a bottleneck in the market. Your pledge, margin pledge APIs, and also the ideas API. I like that one. That was I was not aware of that one. So that's is a good direction to develop in. So well, we've got a lot of one request. Can we also have some sort of a point of contact that when we come for these implementations, how do you go about doing that?
Sure. I think what we'll do is we will share with you from the office of Prashant Bagal.
Yeah.
we'll share a point of contact because this is slightly different from the typical help desk model. So
Yes.
I didn't want to go to the service desk route. So we'll have a dedicated, SPOC from Prashantji's team. So this way, these kind of questions, as well as any new, requests that you may have, that the market may have, I think we should be able to handle it, in a very focused and channelized manner.
Exactly. That specialized, input is important.
Sure. So we will share that email ID with yourself, and I think that can then be disseminated across the market participant.
Sure,
If
sure.
that is fine with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And we've got other questions that have more to do with operations and not related to the particular webinar. So what we'll do is we'll have Shital reach out to those members, and then we will give you a point of contact in NSDL that this can be taken up. So thank you very much for giving time out and giving us this session. And hopefully we'll do more in the future. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so
Okay,
much,
Shital.
and thanks to the entire community for listening to us. And myself, my colleague Parag and Parthiv, we are happy to present around the NSDL capabilities and how we see the future unfolding.
Thank you. We'll look forward to having more such sessions and presenting more of our offerings to you on a regular
Likewise.
basis.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of ANMI, I thank all the speakers, Vishalji, Paragji, Karthikji, Parthivji, for giving time out for our members and, presenting comprehensive details about API operation, benefits, roadmap, etc. I also thank our chairman and thank you very much, all the members, for attending the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.